A very warm welcome to this World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention's very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world, so others may benefit.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this World Game Changers podcast episode. But first today, listeners, a gentleman by the name of Collins Mureithi from Kenya in Africa. Collins, a very, very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here, Paul.
And listeners, what we're going to talk about, I think it's fair, Africa is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful country. But there's I think it's fair to say as well that there's a lot of challenges that go there, and challenges that can only be overcome really by good, effective leadership. So I want to focus in, Collins, around this theme of soulful leaders. First of all, maybe a good starting point is to say, what do those two words mean to you, Collins? Soulful leaders.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think, to be brief, soulful leaders is, I look at it in a manner whereby this is a person who bring service to humanity, and it's a leader who is able to serve the community or humanity through giving his purpose in life, or through giving without expecting receiving anything, like it's a servant leader, it's a servant leadership process. So I believe when I hear about soulful leaders, is all about serving humanity through giving your purpose in life. Yes.
Good description. So let me ask you on a personal level, Collins, do you self-recognize yourself as a soulful leader?
Absolutely, because one, I've been able to discover my purpose, and I've been able to serve humanity through my calling, and when I serve my community, for example, in Kenya, Africa, I don't exactly look at what I'm getting, but I serve because I know it's all about giving, and sometimes as a soulful leader, you have to serve with love, which we don't see a lot in many leaders, and especially in Africa. So I can consider myself as a soulful leader because every day I serve my purpose throughout what I do, and it revolves around love. Yes, thanks, Paul.
That's very, very poignant, Collins. The reason I asked that question, listeners, is this: that oftentimes when we refer to people are not comfortable with self-praise. When you pay somebody a compliment, how many times have you, I don't know, I'll give a simple example. Oh, I like your new shoes. Oh, and I like your new shoes too. People struggle with embracing this identity of praise and recognition. So I love your answer there, Collins, and the way that you embraced, yes, you are a soulful leader. Absolutely, in my perception, in my heart, you are. And the fact that you own that and you take responsibility for that is actually leadership in action. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Okay.
So is it fair to say as well, Collins, that in not just Africa, but in the world generally, there are leaders that, you've used the word love there, which is absolutely right, yet again, in my humble opinion, is what a soulful leader is about, leading from the heart. But it's fair to say, is it not, that many so-called leaders lead with fear? Is that a general statement that holds water for you? Is that true in Africa?
Yeah, it's very true, Paul, because actually the reason why I also started a program on leadership is because a lot of people do not understand what is the true definition of leadership, and I think what really needs to be done is to help people understand actually what exactly is leadership and who is a soulful leader. So I see a lot of leaders who are just wanting to be in positions because of what they are getting. I see, for example, like in Africa, Kenya, to be specific, a lot of young people right now know that if I want to accumulate more wealth, I need to be in leadership. So when they go with that mindset of becoming a leader, it is now they go there with a mindset of accumulating a lot of wealth in an ill manner. So I think people, and mostly even leaders, we see that happening. Like, leadership is all about taking something. So it makes people to also have that fear of, because when you accumulate things not in the right way, every day you will just have fear. But if you serve without in the right way, there's no way you will have fear. So I believe there is, and it is happening. And that is why we are also coming up with programs of just helping people to understand what is servant leadership or soulful leadership.
Mm. It's that age-old dilemma that we face, isn't it? Fear versus love. And oftentimes, yet again, Collins, I put it to people that it is a choice that we make. We do have a choice, and people come back at me and say, "Oh, that's so easy for you to say that, Paul. You've got a nice life." Well, I've got a perceived nice life because I did consciously make that choice, to embrace love as the light, as the way forward, rather than being trapped by fear. And that fear, and I ask this as a question yet again, doesn't that stem within our own mind? Isn't that really where the fear, is planted and it grows from and paralyzes? Or do you see that as the fear being from kind of more external sources, Collins?
Come again, Paul?
Well, I'm saying that fear, this choice between love and fear, is exactly that, a choice that we as an individual can make. It's not some fancy theory or, it would be nice to live in a world of love. We can consciously, as an individual, make that choice, can't we?
Yeah. And I think, Paul, people need to understand that heaven, the definition of heaven is what you create. It is what you choose to do. And whatever you do as a person will either haunt you negatively or positively. And as you said, it is all about choice. It's about choice, because if today I decide to be a servant leader, it is because I've decided as a person, and I know I want to serve with love. If today I decide to maybe I always call it transactional leadership. If I decide that, it is my choice. And transactional leadership will come with its own negative attributes, but also soulful leadership. If I choose to be a soulful leader, it will also come up with positive attributes. So I believe it is all about choice as an individual, that whatever you want to create, the heaven you want to have, is upon you to choose what you want to do. And as we know, what you do will always come back to you, either negatively or positively. So I believe it's all about choice, Paul. Yeah.
So, in terms of that choice, then, Collins, how do we, and I'm going to say we, how do we start to reach people in your community in Kenya, in your country in Kenya, from a broad perspective of your continent in Africa, then your country in Kenya, and then, into your local villages, your local communities? How do we start? And I'll repeat, how do we? Obviously, you're the guy at the sharp end. You're dealing with these challenges. And we can dive into that a little bit more in a moment too, Collins. But where do we start this process?
I think already we have a space whereby right now in Africa, Kenya, that we are using. Like, for example, we have a center, we have a space. So we have community, we have people. So we're not starting from zero. So I think there are many ways and strategies of doing that we can do in partnership. One, what we are doing right now is podcast, and I think there are a lot of ways. Like now, for example, let's say technology. We do WhatsApp groups, we do Facebook Lives, we do podcast, we do all those things just to empower people to understand what exactly is soulful leadership or servant leadership. And as we do that, we raise people to understand the right definition of leadership. And we say, if those people have understood, we call them champions of soulful leaders, then they go to the communities, It's like multiplication. So I believe one of the strategies, Paul, is we can also use technology, because today technology has bring the world to be a village, like right now we are talking with you and we are at a very high distance. So I believe we also need to learn from the experts what is the definition of leadership and soulful leadership. Because if we understand it and we are able to know this is what you're supposed to do as an individual, this is what I'm supposed to do as a soulful leader. And one of the responsibility of a soulful leader is also to go and build others. So I think it will go as we multiply, and as we multiply, it becomes a large pool of soulful leaders who will now be able, as I call it in my organization or my nonprofit, like building leaders to be agents of positive change in the community. So when you sit down, you're able to talk to your friend, you're able to talk to your families about the art of soulful leadership. So I believe in partnership, Paul, and I know if we can be able to support one another in terms of just sharing and also see how we can partner just to lead the definition of soulful leadership, that will be perfect, Paul.
And I think it's fair to say, I certainly, from a personal point of view, Collins, feel that the time that we're investing in our conversations, and obviously, the one that we had earlier this week within a group situation, is really kind of paving the way and moving forwards for us to be able to make an impact and for more people to become soulful leaders. And that nicely leads in. Collins, that nicely leads into a term that I want to follow up on this particular podcast episode by just entering two words. And I just want to offer the two words because then, as soulful leaders, we embrace even more unsung heroes. Just hold that thought, Collins, unsung heroes, because that will be the starting point for our next podcast episode. But before we do that, I'd just like to finish this one off, if I may, by inviting you in to share your contact details, how people can reach out to you, find out more about you, and the absolutely life-changing, amazing work that you do. What's your best contact details, Collins?
So my contacts, first of all, I'm in all social media accounts. Like Facebook, it is Collins Mureithi, and our Twitter account is at Mureithi Collins, and also Instagram. And I also have an organization that I lead, that we do a lot of empowerment to young people, called Center for Adolescent and Young Change Makers, on Facebook and also on Twitter and on LinkedIn. So all my social media accounts is Collins Mureithi at LinkedIn, Collins Mureithi LinkedIn, but Facebook Collins Mureithi, Twitter at Mureithi _Collins. So I think we can continue with the conversation. And if you want to know more of what we do, just check our profile, check our platform, and you will understand how we can also partner together to continue serving the community. Thank you, Paul.
Super. Thank you so much, Collins. And at this point, I'm going to sign off on this particular episode the way I always do, listeners, by saying, remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to paul@worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world is changing. How will you respond?